Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Arena. Today, we are trying something different. For those of you who might have noticed, some things on the screen don't really add up to what they were back when we played, our last historic brawl game. Today, we find ourselves on an alternative account, of which will probably be my main account. Um, we are on the Other Side Professor account, mostly for, well, a handful of reasons, but, you know,
Do not get in my way.
it's hard to explain, so let me explain. You see, on the other account, that's where most of my wild cards, my money, most of my impulse purchases are. So I don't have many wild cards for the advanced, hyperactive, or hyper competitive, decks, such as a good Dovin deck or a good Niv Mizzet commander deck. And it's hard for me to get into Explorer on that account because it feels like I'm making so much content, in quotes, making so many decks that need so many cards, that need so many wild cards that I don't have, so I have to go and get cards and farm out the packs, open up the packs, and so on and so forth without ever really having the ability to diverge to something else. So, today, I thought it would be interesting to go onto this account, start anew, start a fresh blank slate, know exactly what I'm going into, know exactly what I need to craft, and start an Explorer ranked series. Welcome, everybody, to free Tier 7 Explorer ranked. Today, we take other people's ideas because they did it better than we did. I made a new account. I put in all of the packs. I did all of the color challenges. I did all of the jump in events that I could. And this is what we're left with. We're left with a good handful of cards, the starting decks that they give you that are no longer viable in standard, and then two decks that are not free, basically. This is going to be the end goal deck, at least for now. Of course, the more that we play this series, the more other stuff that we're going to want, such as spirits. Mono blue spirits would be awesome to play. Maybe throw in a little bit of Teamer Transmog. That sounds pretty awesome. Throw in a handful of other endgame competitive decks, and that, you know, it sounds pretty nice. But for now, we need to start with one deck, and that deck will be a sort of control deck that I have never really gotten to play before. Never really had a want to play before. This is Orzhov Control. Now over here we have our 1 mana removal spell, we have our 1 mana hand hate spell, we have our 2 mana learn, we have our Tahalia, which everyone hates, death and taxes, we have another hand hate, which gets better with nothing. And then we have the Eldrazi. We have the Displacer so that we can flicker some effects, like the Professor of Symbology so that we can learn, or the Skyclave Apparition so that we can continually remove something on the battlefield, or the Acquisitions Expert so that we can continually have hand hate. After, the Eldrazi Displacer, we have the Skyclave Apparition so that we can have a good removal that doesn't get non-bowed by Tahalia. We have Graveyard Trespassers so that we can have some aggro, some burn. We have Matter Reshapers so that we can put on the aggro and not really be punished too hard for it, because there is like 12 cards that we could hit that count as misses. Everything else that you might count as a miss, I would count as a ramp. And if we're ramping with land, then that means that we're playing more cards from our hand, and even though we don't have card draw in the main deck, it's still relatively good to have the availability, the accessibility to play more and more cards by simply having more mana. So no matter what, Matter Reshaper will hit something, and if it's a whiff, then it still goes into our hand. If it's a land, it ramps us. If it's a creature, yippee! The only bad creature that we could hit with it would be another Tahalia if we have one. But, you know, we'll take a look at that in the main deck, in the deck that we have crafted. And then we have Thought-Knot Seer so that we can have more hand hate behind a hefty body. And our mana base is standard players and historic brawl players will have no clue what's going on because I come from both of those and I was clueless. But a Ganja was our removal spell that doesn't non-bow with Tahalia. This is just a really good card, and I feel like everyone knows that. This can generate a generic mana, which is good for our Eldrazi, and it's also a panland, which I've come to love. This is just an all-out pretty okay card. This is, you know, Shocklands are pretty cool, and Mutavault generates a generic mana for our, you know, our Eldrazi, and also becomes a 2/2 so that we can continue the beatdown. And then we have a single waste because we had one. And our sideboard, because we have a Professor of Symbology, we have Environmental Sciences, which can help us ramp, it can help us fix, and it can help us gain life. We have Reduced to Memory in case, you know, Skyclave Apparition isn't enough, which it might seem like enough, but when we get to the main deck, like, it kind of doesn't make sense to have in the future deck, which we might replace it out with another card in the future, but it makes sense in the main deck, and you'll see why. Inkling Summoning just so that we can have more versatility. Flyers going over people are awesome. I'll tell you, I test drove this deck, well, the other deck, and I was able to kill every Planeswalker my opponent played because of the Inkling Summoning. Expanded Anatomy, always good to have. Introduction to Prophecy, love me some card draw on the off deck. Scry 2 and then draw a card is phenomenal. Phenomenal. I really do recommend that if you're running a Learn deck, you should think about picking up the Introduction to Prophecy. And then we have 2 Mascot Exhibitions because we want to burn mythic rare wild cards, am I right? Mostly so that when Matter Reshaper whiffs by hitting a land, we have something to look forward to. We can scry, we can find ways to dig to the Symbolobua, and then get to the Mascot exhibition, and then just slam it down and make it so hard for our enemies to catch up to us because they're trying to claw their way out of having that hand hate, having this aggro beat down kind of synergy, and then we slam down a Mascot exhibition, and they probably don't have a board because of the amount of Skyclave Apparitions that will be flickering with Eldrazi Displacer. It's a wonderfully complicated, unusual sort of deck tech, of which kind of it's a control that I've never preferred. I feel like when you have the hope to play a card and get it counterspelled, it's different from just having a turn 1, I take this card and I crunch it up in my hand and now your $1,000 Black Lotus is nothing but crumpled up paper. But Competitive Explorer is Competitive Explorer, and this deck will be being taken into Ranked, so it fits. It's good, and trust me, even Bronzies and Ranked have Suave. It's called Celestial Life Game. But this is the deck that we will be going to in the future, with all of the packs that we've opened, the wild cards and so on. The only things that we were really able to craft is this Eldrazi Now deck, where we have a handful of replacements, a handful of different cards. We have 2 Dreams of Steel and Oil, 2 Duresses, because, well, neither of them are over-encompassing. If it was a best of 3 format, then Dreams of Steel and Oil, there would probably be a good amount of them in the sideboard, and same with Duress, so that we can swap in between the two. I recommend thinking about that if you want to think about saving wild cards, because if you're a best of 3 player, seriously stop playing Thoughtseize. There's Dreams of Steel and Oil Duress. You might whiff on your first game, but it's not about winning the first game. We have that Fatal Push from the previous deck. We have the Professor, and then we have a Sejuri Shelter, because I couldn't put Eganjo in this deck, and I needed another card, and I thought, you know what? This is a pretty okay land. If we have something that we want to protect, for example, we could do that, hypothetically, in certain cases. If we need a land, we could also do that, because on turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, we're not really tempoing hard. Like, yes, we're tempoing, but you have to understand the nature of this deck isn't to tempo hard, it's to just be a little rascal. We have an extra acquisitions expert, just because we needed more cards. And as you can see, we don't have a Tahalia, and that's because Tahalia has been replaced by Tahalia at Home, a 3-mana Pegasus flying. Non-creature spells cost 1 more to cast, and in my opinion, the Vryn Ringmare is better than Tahalia in certain cases, because you can stack the effects. But Tahalia is a legendary creature, Vryn Wingmare isn't, so you can ruin certain games. I made somebody's enchantment cost 7 with these Pegasus. It's great. And we didn't have enough mythic rare wild cards, or yeah, not mythic rare. We didn't have enough rare wild cards to have the Graveyard Trespasser, so instead I opted it in with the Biting Palm Ninja, of which I got from the jump-in events. And honestly, I know Graveyard Trespasser is consistent, but if you want to double down on the hand hate, Biting Palm Ninja is really where it's at, because, like, turn 2, you play an acquisitions expert, cool. They don't have anything because they've been discarding cards since turn 1. Turn 3, you swing in with it, Ninjutsu, Biting Palm, take more cards from their hand. It's, whoo. Or you can just slam it on turn 3 and just have a 3/3 Menacer while everything else deals with the other stuff. And we also have Skyclave Apparition at Home, where it exiles it under the card, but when the card leaves the battlefield, it unexiles it, unlike Skyclave, where it doesn't give them back the card that it exiled, it gives them a token with power and toughness equal to its mana. Which, it is better, but Fairgrounds Warden is cheaper because of the wild cards, and is also more versatile because it's not 1 generic 2 white, it's 2 generic 1 white. So it helps a lot in the unusual circumstances that we have to put ourselves in by budgeting the lands as well. And then we have the full placement of Thought-Knot Seer. So those are the replacements, adjustments, and so on that we've had to do. And Reduced to Memory becomes better because we don't have as solidified removal, we don't have a well put together deck. We have stuff that can counter, that can non-bow us, non-bowing ourselves by giving them a token, a 3/2 token spirit. Because if we do that, we can just Fairgrounds Warden and that token is gone. Next turn, flicker it with Eldrazi Displacer, boom! Fairgrounds Warden is back to its optimal route. So, that's how it is now. This is how it'll be then. And for the record, no, I did not craft this deck by hand. I took it off the internet because I can't create competitive decks. In fact, I'm thinking of changing the budget commander to casual commander and having the occasional feature of Hellq because I want to play Dovin. But yeah, that's what this is. This series, we will not be spending a single dime on Magic the Gathering Arena, on this account at least, because I want to show that as a new player, or to anyone who wants to get into competitive or ranked, that if you make an alternative account and have that be the ranked alternative account, have that be the hardcore one where you have the terrible deck that you would never play with your friends and only do ranked and grind a mythic on that deck, that you can do that and you can go to tournaments. And I get that it's going to be like, oh, but I get ranked rewards on this alt account, on my not main account. And you can take those rewards, you can take all of this effort that you're putting into it to reinvest what you once had as money into your old account to time into the new account. All of that effort that you put in can be wild cards. It can be different decks. It can be different rewards. You can be basically a new superstar. And as I said before, this is not my original idea, unfortunately. If only I was as creative to be able to come up with that idea, but no, it is not my idea. It is another Magic the Gathering YouTuber ideas. If you can give me a second, I might be able to pull up their name. But I was particularly intrigued by this idea. I thought it would add in an extra little spice that this channel was lacking, because it would just be, hey, here's a kind of crappy commander deck list that you can take to infinity and beyond, and I'm only doing half the work, you do the other half. I want to put in more effort. I want to give reason for people to watch these videos more than just the quick idea, the quick spurt of creativity. And Tr3v TCG, Tr3v TCG, is the original person who came up with this idea. So, if any of you aren't subscribed to him or haven't watched any of his videos, please do so, because were it not for him, I wouldn't be so excited, so wanting to breathe a new life into my channel. But all of that explanation, all of that cheesy stuff aside, let's get straight into our first game. First ranked game of the season. You know, ooh, they're either a blue control deck or some yeah, they're either a blue control deck or some sort of janky red deck. That's my prediction. So we turn 1, run out the Scoured Barrens. It should give us, yeah, perfect. We turn 2, play that. Do we hold up the Fatal Push? I think we just try and keep it if we can. You know, the acquisitions expert idea that I spoke about in Deck Tech. Plus, it normally burns down on their clock a little bit because they're still figuring out how acquisitions expert works. It's a wonderful card. Seriously, think about using it if you haven't. And there we go, the burn down on the clock. This would be wonderful in a competitive or a tournament format if you're one of the people that try and leverage the clock as a tool to win the game. Of course, they might be one of the soft people that get up immediately and leave the game as soon as any hand disruption comes into play. Might definitely be one of those players. I've ran into a couple of them in my fair run. Oh, they are a Boros deck. That is unusual. Here's hoping they didn't get up and aren't softies because, you know, they are back. They either made the longest decision of their life. Got it. So, with that, that kind of tells us that we can keep up the Fatal Push. Or we can go out with the creature, and I think that if we go out with the creature, we'll be more than I will be. Because next turn we can play the Eldrazi Displacer and Fatal Push instead of Fatal Pushing on their turn. Which keeps us with mana efficiency. And if they play any 3 mana thing, which I hope that they don't, considering that their deck seems to be low to the ground aggro. Like, if they play 2 small things, then I can get rid of one and then rid of another. But if they play one big thing, then my Biting Palm Ninja can still get past, which is important. So regardless, we're pretty happy here. Unless it seems like they might be one of the people with a fist full of removal, you know? Pretty good at playing creatures. Eventually, they'll run out of that removal. Eventually, we'll be able to beat them down. And, you know, this doesn't really feel like an explorer deck. This feels like someone just took a handful of things, put it together. Because if this was a burn deck, I feel like it would be a little bit different. We might have seen an Eidolon here or there. Immediately fatal push that. Mostly just for spite. Play our desert. Swing in for 3. Be the person doing the most damage. Feel awesome about it. And if they play a 3-mana creature to get a 1/1 counter, watch this. This is my favorite thing to do. Wait, I can just... Oh, target creature... Exile another target creature. Yeah, just click it up. And then it doesn't have the 1/1 counter. So that's great. I think I'm gonna wait for Kumano to come in. Well, I can't do that, which is unfortunate. So I need to wait for Kumano to come in so that he can be killed by the fatal push. Something else that I can, you know, hit with it, something better. Because we don't have really much graveyard recursion, so it doesn't matter too much that the Kumano can stay there. Just gonna push him off the edge and use our extra mana so that they can't even attack, which is their punishment for, you know, their punishment for thinking that they can just vibe. Swing in for another 3, and they are stuck on their 3rd mana. Oh, finally hit that 4th, and then we'll use another 3 mana to do that. So, again. Ooh, if only it hadn't entered the battlefield effect, I would not be in the best position. Throw out the Pokemon Seed, take a look at that hand. Siege Dragon, which they won't get to play. Asari Captain is what they're closest to playing, so I'm gonna get rid of that. And then I pass my turn. Hopefully that's not a land. And it is a land. Okay. So that is... Well, I mean... That's still kind of game. Actually, no, that is game for us, because we can take our Desert Dunes, sacrifice the Desert Dunes, of which... By the way, wonderful you can do that, and swing in for none. Try and get a quick game. Wonderful. That's how this deck normally plays. There's other occasions where this deck plays better than that, and there's other occasions where it plays worse than that. It's like every deck. It's fallible. It's not perfect, especially this version of it. But it most certainly is fun for me. And I'm having a good amount of time. I'm really excited to play more of this deck, and I hope that you're really excited to see more of this deck, because honestly, it excites me to feel like I'm closer to the level of tournament. I love watching Explorer tournaments. It's my favorite thing to do. One of my favorite things to do, not my exact favorite thing to do. So here's how this goes, right? This is a keep. We need to play a swamp, hold up the fatal push, play the tapped land, gain a life, because that's our stabilizing. After that, we should say hello. After that, we play the Biting Palm Ninja or the Matter Reshaper. I think it has to be the Biting Palm Ninja. And would you look at that? Everyone playing mono. Ooh, how unusual. Unfortunately, this doesn't really help in our venture to play the Matter Reshaper, but it does kind of keep with the same vibe that we had before. Everyone plays Boros. Everyone plays Boros. So, we might have to throw out the Biting... Well, I say throw out. We might have to play the Biting Palm Ninja. Just... Oh. The Eldrazi Displacer, we can't activate its ability, so we should put a focus on the Ninja. Slam it down, say this is our 3/3, $20 you can't do 3 damage. There's a relatively good chance that we'll be in debt. But let's hope that we're not, because that's what gamblers do. AoE damage. Another one. Is playing. Why? Why? Why is it all the same? Anyway, we're gonna swing in for 3, remove the menace counter, and take a peek at that beautiful hand. So regardless, they're playing 2 things next turn. What do we want them to be? Do we want them to be 2 samurai? Honestly, get rid of the Lion Sash. The first next creature that they play, we have to Fatal Push because it enters with 2 additional +1/+1 counters. And if it's unfortunately a 4-drop that they top deck, that'll be even worse for us. And this is wonderful because we can just Fatal Cold Cryo, Fatal Close, Fatal that. Still not really in the position to flicker anything, but still in a better position than our opponent. Colorless land, but if they swing at us, I still think that we race better. I think they have to swing 1 person, I think this doesn't count towards... yeah. If they swing both, that's shooting themselves in the foot, I think? Because that's weird. And there we go. Would you look at it? We play defensively. I'm not really looking to flicker anything. There hasn't necessarily been anything that I've wanted to flicker. And that is just wonderful for us because they have no... Oh wait, no, I haven't read their card. Well, let's see. I don't want to play that, so I kind of want to throw this out. And if I swing that, I can guarantee kill 1 thing, and then I can flicker it before it does damage. Good for them for looking through that if they double block with the Kumano. Which they do. We're praying that they didn't top deck a creature because that would have definitely been a non-bow. Wonderful. Love to see that. We are perfectly fine with getting rid of un-Eldrazi. And just like that, we are stabilized. 6 damage to their face. We're gonna wait for Kumano. If they channel that removal spell, then I can flicker Kumano before they do that, so that I can still, you know, have the effect of the Matter Reshaper. Excuse me. They declare attackers. I activate this to flicker that because I would much rather take 1 damage, and if they're bad at the game, that's like a removal on the Displacer, but the effect goes off. If they're not I mean, I did call it. We're going to hold this up because we have no way to flicker it. 3, 6, 7, 8. Unfortunately, we missed the Luther bad because we could have sacked the land. But I don't think it matters too much because regardless, we can... Yeah, and they're just going to be a very good sport about it. Swing in a 3 and do enough damage to their face to win. And beautiful. From Bronze Tier 4 to Bronze Tier 3. And for the record, yes, I had 2 notches, I played 3 games, I won 1, I was screaming. You know how when you make a deck, you like top deck everything you don't need? And then like after a couple of games, you finally get the stuff that you do need? That's exactly what was happening to me, and it was not making me happy. But you know, you gotta get the bad games out before you put on the camera, and that is what is most important. The Thran Empire fell to Phyrexia 5,000 years before Urza, but was known for their highly advanced artifacts. Power stones have nearly inexhaustible sources of power, and Urza reverse engineers the mighty Omnithopter. Did you know that? But this Eldrazi deck, it's a breath of fresh air for me. Standard sucks, and I'm growing to be cynical of MTGA Commander because it just feels like everyone is playing to be a winner, not to have fun, but to be a winner. And for some people, that is fun, and I get it. But to me, that sucks. Because I'm trying to play a casual format with no ranked ladder to have fun, and I'm forced into what feels like basically a ranked ladder to not have fun. So here we're going to play our desert, and then we're going to Dreams of Steel and Oil, even though that leaves us open to a creature that they can play. We're going to take their mana ability. This is gonna be a hard game. Because if I'm not mistaken, everything in their hand is a creature spell, so we have to play the Eldrazi because it poses a better blocker. Unfortunately, it's 3 mana, so we can't really remove it. But if they put it on that, then that's even better because that's 2 mana. If they don't target use, and I had to say something unfortunate. If only this was untapped. Do we play the Biting Palm Ninja? I think we might have to threaten playing the Biting Palm Ninja. Well, we don't know what else is in their hand, so we can just and hope that they don't have a turn 4 land into a turn 4 creature, because if they do, that would be terrible for our prediction. But if they don't, which let's say we hope they don't, they can swing at their 3/3 at us. We'll let it go through. We'll play the Thought-Knot Seer, we'll see into their hand, and then we'll slowly start piecing apart their hand and just making them exile card by card by card. And while yes, they will be drawing cards, it's still a pseudo form of mill, which is the interesting part. Now, I'm not sure if they got upset at the... No, they're not. They're thinking really hard. Friendly reminder, be patient with your opponents, and that is exactly what we did. We literally top-decked the 2 things that we didn't want them to. Now we have to play the Thought. Discard that. And they can play it. Boy. This is gonna hurt and suck. This might be one of those lost games. Fortunately, we just ranked up, so we can't D-rank. Are we lagging? No, we're not, because we have the your go. There we go, 5 damage to face. Let's hope we can draw into an answer. Perfect. We're gonna hold back, hope they don't top deck a creature. And then we might be in the place to Biting Palm Ninja next turn. Because if we... No, we don't want to bounce the Thought Knot Seer back to our hand because then they get to draw a card. Well, if we do that, then we get to discard a card because of Biting Palm Ninja. So we might want to do that because it feels like a non-bow, but it isn't. Now let's hope that the Great Henge doesn't help them ramp into anything amazing, and that's just a land or a small creature. Because if it isn't, we're going to be in a world of hurt unless we draw another Fairground Coordinate. That's not too bad, but it's still pretty bad. Because then the Beetle becomes a 4/4. He might feel inclined to swing. If we chump with the Thought Knot Seer, he could have a removal spell in his hand, and if he does, then that's just the world's best top deck. Which it doesn't seem like they do, which is wonderful. Another Thought Knot Seer. The Beetle will continually buff itself up. So how do we play this? I think we play the Thought Knots. Well, we could play the Eldrazi. And then we could just take 5 damage to the face, which I don't think we want to do. But regardless, they're probably going to be drawing 2 cards. Which is the issue. We could play Biting Palm Ninja and try to mitigate it. Because this continually grows, this doesn't. So I think we play the Biting Palm Ninja weirdly enough to stall for time, and we hope that that card isn't like a 3-mana removal spell. Because we just take the 5 from that, we double block here, one thing gets to live. If they let the Biting Palm Ninja live, that's good. If they don't, they don't. Which is good for us, because they haven't played that card quite yet. Which lets us draw into that and play another Thought Knot Seer. That's such a fun little name to say, Thought Knot Seer. I don't think green has any counter spells unless they have a Secret Pact of Negation. Pretty good. Look at the card in their hand, and it's a land. That little bit of knowledge is important, I suppose. However, we do want to swing in for 1 because we know we can do that for free, even though they can gain life with the just by tapping and then passing with the Great Henge. That 1 damage continually might help us comparatively to nothing. And I know a lot of people might be like the Eldrazi Displacer better, whatever, but I feel like if we let them draw cards by trying to displace, it's not good, and like we could get the Gnarlid colony off the field by displacing it and swooshing it around, but I feel like right now the Eldrazi Displacer isn't as good as a 4/4 body. It doesn't seem like their draw was the best, because they haven't immediately slammed it yet. Could be another land, it could be another creature. It could be a spell that they can't cast yet, so they're taking in a deep breath and thoroughly thinking, but I feel like if that was a good draw, they would have immediately played it. And would you look at that? State back to clear, hands are equalized. Hopefully they don't draw a massive creature. Wonderful. Swing down the Eldrazi Displacer and then swing into their face. Because I don't think they can play something with haste that does 7 damage unless they can somehow combo a Vorinclex top deck into like a 1 mana put a +1/+1. And even then, we have Displacer to be a body. And would you look at that? Beautiful. I kind of want to... I'll play a Bryn Wingmare because we already have a Displacer on the board. And I know that it doesn't matter too much because... It's a 2/1. If they have a big trampling creature, then we lose. They hate it. But we have to... Well, no, because we can just flicker it with Displacer. Not entirely sure if that was the top deck they needed. Or just a card that they wanted to flex. Well, that's 4 + 3 + 2 + 1. And that's a mana dork. Yeah, and that is kind of the not so best case scenario. We don't have an answer yet. Why auto tapper? So we tap that, we tap that. Hold up. We don't want them to draw cards, which is the thing. We need to slowly dismantle them 2 damage by 2 damage by 2 damage. Reveal a land, wonderful. And then on our turn we can flicker the needle to get in for a good amount of damage if they don't play any body. This is a... That doesn't change it! You can't... I guess he can bottom it, but... You can't put those in your hand! Don't do it again! Ooh, if he has a pump spell for 3, we lose. I think we risk it. I think we risk it. There we go. Good. And that's 2. That's 4 + 3. 7 + 1 + 2. Wonderful. We'll slam down a Professor's and just in case that's a sorcery, we don't have instant speed removal. Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! Would you talk about close, dude? Bronze is going to be painful. Silver is going to be worse. Gold is going to be hell. And then Platinum's gonna be like, it's alright. And then Mythic, we're not getting the Mythic. I also forgot about Diamond. Poor Diamond players. But this deck is wonderful, and that is a perfect reason as to why I have been dying to play this series, to do this series ever since I made the deck. Because it is just so fun, it's so refreshing. Hello! I'm no longer Sunbro Gremlin, tricky the Gremlin-like ways to play the game. Show me your hand. I get to choose to be a Gremlin and have Gremlin-like ways. That's only one of them, though. Remember, there's more. It's probably gonna foretell. And then we're gonna do this to play upward. Land, that's sad. We didn't need to top deck the land, it was right there. We saw it. What do I miss? Good to get the removal used on that, though. They get to scry 2, let's hope that they're 2 bottom instead of 2 top, and if they're 2 top, 1 top, 1 bottom. That's still kind of scary. However, counter argument. Nothing in the graveyard, so nothing to worry about blood on the snow for. Vorpal Sword is a funny win con. If I lose to it, that's hilarious. I think Grim Bounty is our biggest fear. So we're gonna do that. Because they could have used Grim Bounty, and if they didn't get Grim Bounty, they could have ramped into Grim Bounty. It's not something. They really did just waste Orcus. Okay. Well, I mean... Because none of these... That's an artifact. I can get rid of that artifact. I might want to get rid of that artifact. Play the Eldrazi, let them know what's up. Vorpal Sword, just that they can't cheeky win the game. And no attacks with the Trognots. Because we can race better than a 5-3. Vicious Range. No sacrifice. Each player discards a card. The Swamp as awesome as it would. Wait, no, because I can play the Swamp, play the Biting Palm Ninja. Not discard anything. And now they're punished for their saga. Return target creature from your graveyard, which is so far nothing. Which is great, by the way, that we're not swinging into their Orcus, because Orcus would just be a force to be reckoned with. Wonderful to see a swamp go to the graveyard. Fairground Orchid, get rid of Orcus. Get rid of the Blood on the Snow in our near future. And that saga just goes to waste because they didn't want to. And that's game. Wonderful. Play a Duress, waste the Duress, and then full swing. Played up against Rakdos, Sakdos, Baddos, ahaha. Got a good, quick and easy win. Now I hope that this is a relatively good demonstration of this deck. I know that it's not like an informative video like Legend VD does, but I hope this inspires you to make a deck similar to this, because Eldrazi are pretty frickin' cool. And if, let's say we win this next game, I doubt it, because that's a Rafine, and Rafine players tend to know what they're doing. You can see it when you hand target, and would you look at that, we don't have any hand targets. Well, we have one, technically, but they get to choose. So we're going to turn one on black to make them think that we have some sort of fatal push. If they attack land, we're going to turn to waste, turn the acquisitions extra on, take a peek at their hand or whatever they want to show us. And then we have 2 Fairgrounds Wardens to deal with whatever they might be playing. Oh, good gosh. Thank gosh. I hate Blizzard Brawl. Wonderful. Play a plans, play our Matter Shooter. Seems they're playing some sort of soul time. In our Born continued. Imagine how I would have had if I didn't pass her. Another Duragard. That is not seen. Swing in with our Matter Reshaper? Or do we hold back? We hold back. That Duragard is nasty. Go wider, maybe. We don't really want to give them the Thought-Knot Seer, because that's 2 pieces of removal, and they still had 2 extra copies, by the way. Talk about a goated hand. Still wonderful that they tap it for its thing and then sacrifice it. And they might be like, why are they doing that? So that I can swing in with my 4/4. And hexproof. I forgot about that. Fuck. Sorry. Frick. Going to play that. It doesn't untap. So I'm still gonna swing in for 2 damage. Unfortunate. Ooh. Okay. How do we leverage this? I think the Matter Reshaper going is fine. Bastard. I don't know why they wouldn't try and block it to get a cheap and quick kill. We might have to use... Hope it's not a Snowland, and it is a Snow Priest of the... Oh boy. What does it tap to do? I really need to draw a Fairgrounds Warden to put me in a Fairgrounds Warden. And that's a waste. Literally! Can you imagine having something removed twice and them still having it in their hand? They lose the Frost Augur. Let's hope it's another spell. The temptation to concede. We might do a comeback. We might do an epic play. That's a concede. And always remember, even if you're playing ranked, some games that aren't fun, just don't play. It's fine. We don't lose anything? Oh my gosh, I should have been conceding a million times ago. Yeah, that's unfortunate to see. Sometimes people come with stacked and goated hands, but, you know, what can you do outside of your best? Potentially last game. You know, last game did take a toll on me. I'm joking, but you know, when you're on the ladder and playing a competitive deck, you should expect to play into decks like that. I will admit, yes, I'm soft, but I'm not sure. Rats you have. Instant put a... Let's get rid of the items so that we can get 27 things. But yes, I will admit, I am soft. And being soft is fun. Sometimes. Just make sure that you're having fun. When that enters I hope to get a white mana source off of the top. That is not a white monster. But it is hand disruption, and hand disruption wins us games. It's also a 1-2 on the board state. This is why Acquisitions Expert, in my opinion, is better than any other 2-drop hand disruption, if there's any. Are they really choosing to get rid of their land? Do they have another one in their hand? I'm sure that was a top deck, but no, I'm proud of them. That is not what we needed to see. Cancel. No attacks. If we draw another land, we can play the Thought-Knot Seer. If we draw another white land, we can play our actual cards. Yeah. Stay the same, even if it means being burned. They're not appreciative of that, but I am appreciative of them staying. It seems that we found our target for Fairgrounds Warden. Gonna get rid of that block instead of perpetually taking one. Remember, it's better to rip off the band-aid in that case than to just, you know, keep taking one. And then the Thought-Knot Seer. Take a look at their hand, take the look. We do not have Planeswalker removal. Beat them up. Whatever they play, we Fairgrounds win. take 4 to the face instead of... I don't think they have any rats. I don't think they're playing any rats. I don't believe they are learning. Okay. Let's see. I know this is rude, but hear me out. They're wanting to exile the rat. Get rid of the rat. Take 1 damage. Now they have to get rid of their so that they can get back either Diana or Fairgrounds Warden. Instead of repelling something. Is it a poison the cup? It is not a poison the cup, otherwise we would have saw it. Oh boy, so we swam down the Verena Wingmare to make it even harder for them to play their stuff. Fortunately, because they're not blue, we know that it's not removal, or excuse me, not a counterspell. Protection from black. Say thanks, and there they go. That was us last game, don't forget. Other people might be soft, but we all have our soft moments. And with ranking up from Bronze 4 to Bronze 2, having a lapse in judgment and feeling terrible about someone making another deck, oh no. I believe that is a perfect place to leave it off, and even though I'm going to be using this to... I'll probably make a short about figuring out which pack to open and then opening that pack for those who are interested in actually following up on the free-to-play Explorer experience. But this will be the pack that we open today. It's Brothers War. I don't think we're going to use it. We have an something of synthesis, you know. You can tell I'm not good at English. Weakstone Subjugation. Recently used that in a draft to win. Tosca's Dig Site. You know, 3 to tap to surveil. Pretty okay. Airlift Captain. It's very reminiscent of a card from Kamigawa, and I think that's interesting. Steel Exemplar enters the battlefield with 2+1/+1 on counters on it, unless 2 or more colors of mana were spent on it. So this is for the mono blue decks. That's pretty cool, actually. Pretty sure you could make a mono blue. If you don't see a Historic Brawl video next time, you know what we're doing then. Overwhelming Remorse, Jalum Tome. Love to see card draw and a Diabolic Intent. This is us making an alt account to ruin Bronze these days. So, thank you all for watching. I'm excited to produce more content. Next episode should be Historic Brawl. Let me know if you want to watch Historic Brawl and the Explorer games coinciding with each other so that you can see more than just one glimpse of me every 1 week or every 2 weeks. But thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. I will see you on the other side. Take care.